Well, this morning is going to be a little bit different for everybody. If you're relatively new to our church family, you're going to learn a lot about our church this morning and our church family, and a little bit about our history and where we're headed, and that's a good thing. Hopefully when you came in, you got a bulletin, and in that bulletin was a little booklet that looks like this. I'm not going to go all the way through this little booklet, but I want you to take home and go through it and look at it, because in 2016-17, I think I counted 33 different ministries, outreaches, nonprofits that we reached out to in a 2-year period of time. That's a lot of folks that we've been reaching out to for the last couple of years. So take that and familiarize yourself with it, because we're very involved in the community, and we believe in worldwide missions too, but we also believe in helping people across the street. Amen? All right, during what we call our annual church report, we do this a couple times a year. We go through just some quick things, and I usually elaborate, and I'm just going to touch and go on those things right now to get to some more important things a little bit later. So how are we doing attendance-wise this year? Well, we have 335 active attendees. What does that mean? We know where you're at and if you've been to church or not. Christmas season, if you've been naughty or you've been nice. No, we know. And our little rule is here, if you've been on board with us and we hadn't seen you for several months, you go to inactive. We don't believe in just pumping up numbers, but we track attendance every week on 335 people, and we've been stable in our attendance this year. We didn't see a lot of growth this year. We've been stable, and what we call our turnstile count is 231, and 189 individuals. That's what it's been an average for the last year. Now you compare that to 2005, which is as far back as I can find attendance records. We was averaging 56 a week. So God's been good to us. Amen? In our children's ministry, we average of 61 kids, 10 teens that attend one service per week. And 2015, we had a little bump when we put the playground in over there. That's what we designed it for. We intentionally did that. 2017, we've seen a little bit of a dip, not tremendous, but a little bit of a dip. A lot of that has been in the midweek service, primarily as now the kids have just regular schedules on Wednesday. Used to, kids had Wednesday off from school activities. Not the case anymore. It's just a normal time, and so it makes it a little bit more challenging. But our fastest growing part of the church has been online. And I'm just going to touch on this, and then we'll visit it a little bit next year, is that since we put up the new website in July, we're getting 1,320 hits a month. Now that's not a lot when you talk about website hits and you talk about something worldwide. But when you talk about a country church in Arkansas, that ain't bad. And we are tracking between 80 to 125 that go to the area that says messages or watch listen, and that they're watching or listening to the previous week's services. And then on the Facebook, those little videos that we put up that go there, those will get watched anywhere from 100 to 700 times. The little skit that we did last week, I think Boone and I were looking at it on Thursday, and it was right at 400 already on Thursday. Again, that's not huge numbers. That's not something to say it's gone viral. But when you're talking about, when we track these back and 80% of them are within our geographic region, that's not bad. Not bad at all. And so somehow we have to figure out if all of those people are you, or if it's not, we need to get those people to church, okay? But that'll be a growth area for next year. Income-wise, our income is actually up year-to-date over the previous year. It's actually been up 9%. That's awesome. Awesome. That's a blessing of the Lord. We did have a little bit of an anomaly this year, and then our general fund income was down 10%, or about $15,000 over the year. So we had to make about a $1,000 a month adjustment in what we do. That's the reason we're running a video camera back there, even though we're videoing all the services now. It's a 6-7-year-old $199 Best Buy video camera that was bought for the youth group. But this year's been a little bit different. You say, well, how did you go up in income and down in general fund? very simply. There were several very nice gifts given to the children's ministry and the building fund. And so the building fund and the children's ministry looks really, really good. And the general fund looks very general. Okay? All right, so much for the church report. I want to talk to you a little bit about our church family and maybe some new things for 2018. We live in a time where we have more generations alive now than ever before. It's an awesome opportunity, but it has unique challenges. Multi-church or multi-generational churches are God's plan. If you ever listen to preachers preach out of the Old Testament, you'll hear them say, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Well, and that's good, but really what they're saying is multi-generational. And now multi-generational is more multi than ever before. So what generations are we talking about? And I'm just going to touch on these and go through them rather quickly. We have the greatest generation, those who were born before 1945. These are the people that saw, some of them, as my dad did, saw 2 world wars. They saw the greatest financial depression, much more devastating than what our country has gone through in the last 10 years. And they also saw the greatest time of economic growth. There's still about 40 million of these people alive, even though it's declining rapidly just because of their ages. Then you come into baby boomers. And let me just give you some general characteristics of baby boomers. This is the largest generation. And it still will be the largest generation for the next 8 to 10 years. There are over 80 million, or 1 in 4 Americans, is a baby boomer. These people had the mindset that they go wherever the job takes them. They're career-minded. They honored the traditions of their parents from the greatest generation. They're also the first generation to get divorces. Divorces were very rare before baby boomers. They're the first generation to retire and do something they enjoyed. This is the first generation that had the benefits of Social Security, pension plans, first generation with 401k plans, IRA plans, those type of things. Before then, you just worked until you dropped. Generation X, this is our smallest group, those born between 1965 and 1979. They are much different in their mindsets than baby boomers. Their parents were career-driven. These people average 7 career changes trying to make up their mind what they want to do in life. They are very cynical when it comes to institutions and government. They are later to marry and much quicker to divorce than in previous generations. But they are by far the smallest group at only about 60 million. Then we come to the millennials. The millennials is now the second largest group, and probably in about 8 to 10 years, they will become by far the largest group. They were still very young when 9/11 happened, and they see the world as an unsafe place. Their life has always included computers. They schedule everything electronically. They live where they want to live, then they go find a job so that they can live there. They are not career-minded for the most part. They have been so saturated with news, for the most part, these people have strong opinions whether you agree with them or not. Then we come to the Generation Z, or I call them the I generation. iPad, iPhone, everything. They are the most racially diverse group that the American society has ever seen. They've never lived without cell phones, and for the most part have never lived without a smartphone. So they don't know a world with a phone with a cord. They don't know a world that was pre-computers or smartphones. They have always been the center of attention. They can get information very, very quickly. Hi, Google, please look up. And they don't think about careers. They think about pleasure. Now you put all of that together in our church family, you have different interests, different viewpoints, different priorities, different schedules, and different preferences. One size will never fit all except for the message of Jesus Christ. So what do we look like as far as a church? Now, we don't know everybody's birthday, but this is kind of what we think you look like in your generation. That we still have about 8% of our church family that is the great generation. We have about 20% of our church family that are baby boomers, 17% Gen Xers, 21% millennials, 34% Generation Z or iGen. In other words, 55% of our church family is under the age of 37. That's a good thing. Great opportunities, unique challenges. We also looked at something else. I wanted to look at just how busy people were. So we went back through, and I didn't know everybody, but I took 110 employed adults, the employed adults. I didn't figure in the retired folks, but 110 employed folks, and 46% of them are commuting more than 20 minutes either to work or to church. Only 54% live locally. That adds a different dynamic of when they want to go to church and how church fits into their schedule. So to meet the changing needs, over the last 25, 30 years, churches have been doing a lot of different things. They've been shifting and adding things and taking away things, because this is not something that's unique. It's a little something new to us, but it's not something unique. And you'll see that churches over the years have added small groups, cell groups, home groups, life groups, interest groups, care groups. They all come by different names. They just try to find a way to meet people where they're at, to communicate that gospel message of Jesus Christ and help them to grow in the Lord. Now, as a leadership team, we're always trying to find out what's the best way to do what God has called us to do. Most of you have heard me use the analogy. If the fish are not biting, you've got several choices. One, keep using what you're using and hope the fish change their mind. Number two, change bait or location. Or number three, just quit. Well, we don't have an option. We're not going to quit on anything. We got to find out what the fish will respond to so we can give them the life-giving message of Jesus Christ. Does that make sense? So the last 2 years, we've really been kicking around some ideas about small groups, or what we'll call life groups. In other words, how are we going to go about loving God, inspiring others, fostering faith, and enjoying life? How are we going to do that? How do we do that? Because not everybody fits into Sunday morning at 10:30 and Wednesday night at 6:30 or 7. Their schedules are too crazy for that to happen. And so Boone and I went on a journey last year, a little over a year ago. We went undercover and started looking and snooping people in our area and their churches, their websites, their Facebook page, unawarely interviewing people from other churches to find out what are they doing. Because Rick wants to know. And what I found out was, sad to say, most churches are not doing much. Sad to say. But we've got some churches in the community that are really out there trying to do some good things, and they're doing a good job. One of the things that we saw very quickly for people who were having successful midweek services, all of them were doing one thing in common. They were providing a full meal for everybody. A full meal for everybody. All but one was providing multiple avenues of transportation to get them to church. A couple of weeks ago, there was an article that came out about a pastor here in town that was a member of what's called the Dynamic Dozen, which we've been blessed to be a part of that group in years past. And that particular church, and I just salute them, hats off to them. They're doing a wonderful, wonderful job. They're feeding about 150 people every Wednesday night. Now, he says to do that, it takes 50 to 60 volunteers every Wednesday night, running the buses, preparing the food, and cleaning it all up. And then he gave a pretty large budget number beside that. I thought to myself, well, first of all, we don't have a kitchen big enough to do that. Second of all, we don't have a place to feed that many people. And third, I don't know that I could get 50 to 60 of you here on a Wednesday night to cook that many meals and run transportation for everybody, to which you're going, thank God he's not asking us to do that this morning. Started to go over and eat with them just to see how good the food was. But anyway. So to meet our need, I just started looking, because I've been dragging my feet. I've been dragging my feet. I like what's worked. I like what always works. I don't want to make any changes. But at the same time, I realize that times have changed. So I said, okay, let's organize what we have and expand it. Because if I look at the definition of what other churches are calling small groups, we're already doing small groups. We're just not calling it small groups. But I kept dragging my feet, and I finally had that aha moment. For me, that means, that's it. I'm ready to go now. I don't know, do any of you ever have one of those? Yeah. You know, you're just praying, God, I need to know, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And, you know, I don't want to do anything wrong, God, what is it is? And all of a sudden there's that, ha-ha, yeah. And for me, we as a church family didn't fit any template. We don't fit the template of, we have Sunday school kind of with the kids, but we don't have Sunday school for the adults. Wednesday night, we don't have a traditional prayer service. We were having teaching services, and we had kids services and stuff, but we don't really fit the model of that. And we don't fit the model of the cell group or home group. But all of a sudden, I began to realize that's a good idea from that group, and that's a good idea from that group. And I got to thinking, you know, we're kind of doing this. We just need to look at it and organize it. Because we've got 3 different areas. We've got study groups, but we really need to expand it. We've got ministry groups that are doing really, really well. And then we've got some hangout groups for baby boomers and great generation people. Hangout groups means fellowship, okay? And we've got some of those, and we need to expand some of those. So what does all that mean, and why life groups? Well, first of all, Acts 2:46 says, they worshiped together at the temple each day and met in homes for the Lord's Supper and shared meals with great joy and generosity. When you look at Jesus' ministry, Jesus taught in the temple, but he taught in the community. He did miracles in the temple, but he also did miracles in the community. Most of his ministry, other than on the Sabbath day, was in the community with the people. Jesus went to the people, and then they came to church. Now, here's some other scriptures you can write down about the church meeting in other places other than a church building. You can just jot those scriptures down there. I'm not going to take time to read all that. So I started organizing this. I started looking at all of this, and we started running it by our leadership team so they could look at it. So I said, okay, let's look at what we've got, and we'll put a check mark beside groups that we already have that are already functioning, and a dot beside a group that we know that we need to do it, that we need to have. And I'm calling them life groups instead of small groups or cell groups or home groups or marketplace groups. We're calling them life groups because we're Lifepoint, so Lifepoint would have a life group. Y'all caught on to that part, didn't you? So 3 categories. The first is a study group. This is traditionally what we've had is on Wednesday night. But each group is designed for 3 or more attendees. Jesus said, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. Each group will have study sessions that will meet 3 to 7 times. What we have learned, especially on Wednesday night and with the Radiant Ladies, you start dragging a series out too long, it starts off and it goes up here, and then it kind of comes down here, and it goes like this. And I think we probably could add another generation into all these other generations we looked at called the attention deficit generation. People lose interest after a while. So you have to find a way to keep it fresh and keep it moving and not let it become too routine or taken for granted. So let's look at some of the study groups we've already got. Number 1, the Radiant Ladies are leading the way. Perfect example. They're doing great. They are a study group and much, much more. They are a study group. And most of the time, their sessions run about 7 sessions. Where's Brenda at? 7? Is that about right? 7 sessions. And they do spring and they do fall. And they're doing a great, awesome job with it. So you just say, okay, they're a life group under the study groups, and just leave them alone. Let them do what they're doing. Then the Ignite Youth. We found out that youth groups around our area are meeting at all different times. Well, with social media now, you can change the meeting time with a group of teens within just a couple of hours. It's not like the old days where you had to go through several methods to contact everybody. Mostly you can catch them really quick. We need to free Boone and the youth group up and give them flexibility to change meeting times and locations as they need to be able to meet the needs of the kids. Their schedules are so crazy to tell them, well, if you're going to be a part of our youth group, you have to show up at Wednesday night at a certain time. They need to be able to meet on Sunday night if they want to, Sunday afternoon, Saturday afternoon. They need to be able to meet. There's one church in town, they meet on Monday. I don't know why, but they do. Works for them. We need to free them up. Then our Impact Junior. Now they meet on Sunday mornings. This is more of what you would call a normal Sunday school, but I'm going to call it a life study group. And they're going to continue meeting on Sunday morning just as normal. Kid Point, kids, same thing. Everything gives that, but I'm going to call them a study group because they're doing studies. They're studying. Then in 2018, we need to add some study groups. We need to add study groups that are about marriage, about finances. We've done the Dave Ramsey thing a number of times, but not everybody can get here on a Wednesday night. And it's a little bit longer than 7 weeks. Parenting. We need just for men, and I'm not talking about that stuff that you put on gray hair either. We need to do. We've talked about it a number of times. We used to have a men's breakfast first Saturday every month. And, you know, kind of got routine and people kind of lose interest. Well, we need to have some things that are just for men. And all the men said, yeah. So the study groups, other than the ones that are running on Sunday mornings, they're going to follow pretty much an educational calendar. Winter and spring, January, February, March, April, May, and then fall, September, October, and November, and we'll take a break June, July, and August. Now, that's not a hard line thing, but that'll be our general guidelines. And that'll be for study groups other than those meeting on Sunday morning, and it doesn't include the kids or the youth, and the Radiant Ladies already fit into that, so it just fits. The second category was this, ministry groups. These are the people that are behind the scenes that are helping in different ministries of the church. We cannot have church the way we have church without these people, and yet most of you don't know who they are. Now, they're different than a study group. They're not going to try to follow an academic calendar, so to speak. Their studies, they might not have a particular guideline study. They may be more of a topic and something that's helping them in their ministry. But here are some of the ministry groups that we have. Our worship team or music group. They get here at 8:30, 9 o'clock on Sundays. They go to lunch, they take a break, they come back, and they're here till 5 or 6 o'clock on Sundays. They put a full day in for you to get ready for the next week. They'll have a little bit of a devotion time, prayer time. That is a ministry group. They're a family. They're a team, so to speak. Then the ones in the back that we don't talk much about, the Lifepoint tech team. You saw what happened. One button get pushed, you can cut Boone completely out of everything. They're important. We don't want to be in the dark, the lighting, the video. And yet they're following pretty much the same schedule. Getting here at 8:30, 9 o'clock, take a break, come back, start getting ready for the next week. They're putting in a tremendous amount of time for us. They're a ministry group. Then we have the children ministry group, our teachers and our helpers. And we don't think about them because they're out of sight, out of mind. They're back in all the different areas back here. You know, we got 40, 50, 60 kids, depending on what week it is here, and they're all taking care of them. That's a ministry group, and we need to appreciate them and show them love. Then we have our Lifepoint outreach group that most of you don't know. They're behind the scenes. We have Rhonda Little, Loretta Alexander, Mary Nugent, Linda Williams. I don't know, I'm forgetting some names. But they're out there sending cards, preparing meals, praying for people, visiting with people. That's a ministry group. It's a life group, but it's a ministry group, and they're going out and helping. And then we've got greeters, and we've kind of got routine in our greeters and our ushers. When we found out a couple of weeks ago what happens when all the ushers go to deer camp, lo and behold, we might need some usher fellowship to kind of get some more ushers trained. And then we got gatekeepers. That's the guys that run around with a little earbud in. And sad to say, church security is an issue now. And we're going to help get them trained. So, but that's not where ministry groups can stop. We need creativity. There are other needs that we could be doing that's beyond my scope of being able to do it within my schedule and my time frame. But we need more ideas. We could use support groups right now to help people dealing with cancer, people dealing with Alzheimer's, people who are doing grief recovery. We could use ministry groups right now that was just reaching out to the elderly. Arbor Oaks always has an open door for us to come and help in a lot of different areas. They called last week. Helping other nonprofits. We're not the only good work in town. We can help other people. We're on the same team. And other ministries. There might need to be something to help single parents out, especially here at the Christmas time. Divorce recovery. The list goes on and on. Am I painting a picture there? That's different in a study group. A study group gathers around how to study about these particular things. These are ministry groups that are trying to help people to get through a stage of life. So when does a ministry group meet? Well, they meet on an as-needed basis determined by the group leader. They don't follow a school calendar or anything like that, because some of them are going to meet weekly, like our worship team and our tech teams and some of those, and others just as needed. Then we'll get to the fun part called hangout groups. Hangout groups. Hangout groups gather around similar interests for an activity, fun, and encouragement. Again, hangout is just another word for fellowship. In the past, our youth have gone to concerts, and they've let a few old people go. And so we'll probably try to expand that and organize, because Boone gets a whole list of all the concerts coming in all the time. And how many of you know concerts can be fun, and it can also be ministering to you? Good concerts can. Golf outings. Some of us love playing golf, and we supported 5 or 6 nonprofits this year. That's a great thing. Then you have the Trash Talking Fantasy Football League. And I want to tell you, I started off 6-0. And then after that, my quarterback got hurt, and this got hurt, and I dropped faster than the Razorbacks did. I may need a grief recovery group. But anyway. But we can develop all kinds of new groups with similar interest. As we've been kind of floating ideas out, people started talking about, well, what about an exercise class? What about a nutrition class? What about a cooking class? What about something with parents and kids? Or what about something that where there's no dad in the picture, that a dad could help a kid for an event at school, for Dad's Day or something? How about something that just has recreational activities? We used to have softball teams, and some of us got too old to play. Am I making sense? The list just goes on and on and on. We want to empower you to be able to minister to folks. Community fellowships. We've got clusters of people all the way around the area here. Probably 1 or 2 times a year. Maybe we just need to get together and see who's got the best food in that community. And if people need prayer, pray for them and have a good time enjoying life. Music classes came up. Introductory music classes. Learning how to play the guitar. Learning how to play the keyboard. Learning how to sing. Not advanced, but maybe introductory things. These are all just ideas. They're not formulated yet, but they're just ideas. And then hangout groups just meet and have fun, determined by the events. They don't follow any schedule because they're just having fun. But they're doing ministry to do it. So how can you be involved? With a study group, you could open your home for a study group. Most homes only seat 4 to 6 people in their living area. And that's what your dining room table chairs and folding chairs are for. You just bring them in. Cindy and I had home groups or small groups in our house for years. And I think we set 6, and we'd put 20 to 25 in there. And they'd sit on pillows, they'd sit on the floor, they'd sit in any chair that we could find, stool. Some of them brought their own lawn chairs. So you just do what you got to do. But, a study group doesn't necessarily have to meet in the home. I don't care. You can meet at McDonald's at 2 a.m. If you can get a group there, I don't care. Meet in your workplace if they allow it. Child care. Oh, he's going to ask me to help the kids. Listen, when you're dealing with people who are hurting and marriages that are failing, you taking a couple of hours to help with a study group, to help watch kids for a couple of hours can change a home. You could save a marriage. You might even save a life just by watching kids. How can you be involved? A study group facilitator, that's going to take a little bit more. There's a little bit prep. You got to preview the material, that type of thing. And we got to figure out how to duplicate the material. Everybody got to buy a workbook, kind of like the Radiant Ladies. We've got to figure out some things there. But you could be a facilitator. We've already selected 15 authors that are already pre-approved, that anything that they've got, we're good with, okay? There's probably more, but we haven't had time to review all of those, but we've got enough to get us started with. You could be a hangout group facilitator. Submit an idea where people of similar interests can get together. It needs to be something where people are gathering for an interest and have some type of productivity. Does that make sense? I heard a pastor, this was probably 20 years ago, I heard a pastor, and they were talking about they called them interest groups, and they had a sewing group. And he said he was really concerned as a pastor about why do we have a sewing group in the church? That doesn't make any sense at all. There's nothing spiritual about it. And he said he walked in one day where they was all sewing just to say hello, and he overheard a lady look over her sewing machine at another younger lady and said, "Don't let me ever hear you talk bad about your husband like that again. He will never get right with the Lord as long as you're running him down like that." And he said his whole perspective changed. Sometimes something can happen when you're doing something of common interest that doesn't seem like ministry, but can be life transforming. And so we don't want to overlook those type of things. Might be a weed pulling hangout group at the church every once in a while. Just teasing. But the most important thing is just show up. Just show up. Just show up. So if you want to be a leader, what do you got to do to be a leader? Well, we are going to ask you to be a church member. If you're not a church member and you want to be a church member, there's a form that's at the information center for you. And we're going to have some things after the service, all kinds of information for you to look at. But you have to be doing your best to walk with God, because nobody's perfect. But if everybody in town's talking about what a heathen you are, you might not be ready to lead that group yet, okay? All right? Provide a safe environment. Safe environment for people to share and not be criticized and judged. They're beat up, they're hurt. They don't need people to be criticizing. Everybody else has been criticizing them. They need somebody to listen and just love on them. And be confidential. Y'all do know what confidential means, don't you? Amen. Keep your mouth shut. If you aired your dirty laundry in front of somebody and your hurting heart in front of somebody, you don't want them to go telling it to everybody. So you got to be safe and be confidentiality. Be willing to pray for those in the group. You got to be exhibiting love, faith, the fruit of the Holy Spirit. Then we move on to a place for the group to meet. Child care is always going to be an issue, and I'm just going to address this right up front. Listen, with the day and age that we are living in now and what's happened in rural churches in the last 2 to 3 years, it would not be wise for us to ask someone to come to the church and stay in this big facility with 4 or 5 kids by themselves. It would not be smart. It would not be smart. You'd be asking someone to be here just by themselves, 4 or 5 kids, with multiple entrances into this place and no backup for support. So we're probably, now if you've got a group that's got 25 or 30 kids, that might mean an exaggeration, we might talk about something differently. But just dropping off a couple of kids to the church and hoping somebody's going to stay with them, that's probably not going to be the best way to do it. Cindy and I always used our back room. We did that. My goodness, we wore out VeggieTales for years. And we just had a group-friendly environment where kids came. It was always in the middle of the group. Coming in, they had a boo-boo, or somebody pinched somebody, or somebody stole somebody's cookie, and that was part of the group development, how you handle those things. And sometimes it didn't always work. Sometimes we couldn't keep them contained in that back room. And looking back on it, even though it was frustrating at times, that was part of the ministry part. We need some kind of report. We need to keep a track. It could be a simple, probably email will work, or if you don't have email, we could do something else. But these are just some things for the group leaders. What we are going to do, because you are probably going to be in the area of kids, we're going to ask you to have a background check just like we do our children's workers. If you're wanted for an axe murderer, and you've got three charges on you for sexual misconduct, you're not going to be working with kids. Now, if you had an unpaid traffic ticket that's become a felony from 1982, grace and mercy is applied. Just go pay it, okay? No. Social media, that's a biggie. You've got to use social media respectfully and honestly. If you're out there and you're running everybody down on social media, or you're telling other people's business on social media, you're probably not ready to be a group leader yet. You need to be in a group, but you don't need to be the group leader. Does that make sense? That's just part of it. Learn it. You know, James talks about if you can't control your mouth, then your religion's in vain. So, most of you know I study, and when we're affiliated with a group called Gateway, we have researched that they have hundreds of churches as part of that network, and all of them had all different types of things. Country areas, a lot of city areas, and I just went through, cherry-picked it. Our former pastor here, Ronnie Brumley, is with a church in Oklahoma called Life Church. Most of you got the Bible app on your smartphone. We picked some ideas from him. Here in Arkansas, New Life churches that are spread all across the state, they called theirs small group, and I think they called everybody in there a small group. Man, you sign up, they put you in a small group. That's their emphasis, really, really strong. So we picked all different areas through here to formulate this so that we would make sure that we're trying to get the best for us, what works for us, and not try to fit into somebody else's system. I don't know if that makes sense or not. So all that having been said, when we got through with all the check boxes and stuff, we've already got about 14 life groups already operating. And I would like to see us add 7 to 10 more sometime in 2018. Study groups are going to be a biggie. Ministry groups are already existing. We need to, if you want to be a part of one of those ministry groups, we're going to tell you how in just a minute. If you want a hangout group, we need your creativity in that. We need to take the church to the people and minister to the people. They'll start coming to church. Don't worry about it. They'll come to church. When they feel Jesus, they'll start coming to church. But we can't do it all on 10:30 Sunday morning or Wednesday night. Does that make sense? There's a lot of people work on Sunday now. A lot of people work on Sunday. I toyed hard in my own brain. Saturday night service. Saturday night service. I feel in my brain that it would work here. And somebody goes, that's the reason we're not going to do it. Because you think about the music, you think about child care, you think about facilities. We're not ready for it yet. Maybe later, but not yet. So, when we get through this morning, out in the foyer, Boone's going to be out there. Boone has a big tablecloth, white tablecloth, said don't set anything on here. And underneath that is all kinds of little interest forms if you want to be if you have an idea for a hangout group that you want to fill out. You want to help with child care in 2018 for a group. Maybe you can only help 1 or 2 times, or you can help all the way through a study for 6 or 7 times. Maybe you want to facilitate that. There are questionnaires for all of it. There's also a little booklet, for lack of a better term, that looks like this that's out there. Gives you all kinds of information about what we've talked about this morning, a little bit more in detail about how Jesus went about his ministry. So I'm excited about 2018 getting organized for what we've been doing and expanding it. So what does that mean for Wednesday night? Probably going into 2018, we're not going to do a traditional adult Wednesday night midweek service. We're going to try to migrate to multiple study groups is what we're going to try to do. We're going to free Boone up to move the youth group to whatever time fits best for them. If they want to meet on Friday night, they can meet Friday night. If they want to meet at 7 o'clock on Saturday morning, which I seriously doubt nobody would come, they could do that. Am I making sense? Don't try to put everybody into the same template. Let's be creative and cast the net out and fish. Peter was fishing on one side of the boat because he liked fishing on one side of the boat, and he didn't want to change anything. He was putting his nets up. Jesus told him to fish on the other side. Hey, I don't want to fish on the other side. I've been fishing on this side. I know what I'm doing. I've been fishing for a long time. There ain't no fish. Put it on the other side. Well, nevertheless, because you say so, at your will, I'm going to do it just to show you. He puts it on the other side. Guess where the fish were? one small change changed the harvest. So we're going to go fishing in 2018. Amen? We're going to fish for people. You're going, now, Pastor, what if this don't work? We'll back up and do something different. But we're going to reach out and try to get a hold of people that won't come to a church on Sunday morning and won't come to a church on a Wednesday night, and we're going to try to love them and help them in life. Amen?